We will see in this tutorial how to use the wave room to model incoming swells. For example, here in the basin of the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz, so here we are not using the wave room either to focus on a wave and a given surfing area, but rather to understand a little bit how the swell works in a bay. So we will be able to do that, to understand the currents a little bit and the way the swell is formed in spaces. So here, we have a nautical chart of the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz, and therefore in fact, we are going to model this Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz a line in the swell. So here, it will be a north-northwest swell. And we will therefore just resize our area correctly to obtain a shape that corresponds to what we want to model. So we zoom in on the map. So we are going to make a texture of 2000 meters by 1500 meters that we will simply apply in our wave room to draw the bathymetry. So I'm going to make a rectangle, 2000 meters by 1500 meters. So I'm going to come here, 1500 meters here, and so we're just going to model this area there to see a bit what happens in the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz when we have a north-northwest swell coming in. I resized my map to represent just the area I want to model. So 2000 meters by 1500 meters. So we load the wave room with any wave, and so we're going to create a bathymetry based on the texture we're going to apply. In this case, it will be the texture of the map of the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz, which will help us to construct our bathymetry. So, a little tip while we're at it, is that here we just loaded a wave, and if I double click in an area, here, nothing happens. It doesn't recenter the screen on the water I want to watch, because when we show the surf space, in fact, the double click only orients if we click in the theoretical surf space. So here, for example, I erased the swell, so in fact, the double click refocuses on the surf space. But if I uncheck the surf space and show all the swell, so there when I double click, I will refocus on the swell. Well, that's a little trick. One more thing is that if I now go to setting, that is to say that I will set my bathymetry, and will now, when I double click, I just select the bottom. So there you go, that's just for impact double click. What happens when you double click on the options checked? There. Here, we're going to set our bathymetry, so that's what we wanted to do. We have the settings option. We're just going to put a little tide up and down to erase the wave. Since there is a change in altitude, the wave is obsolete and erases immediately. I use this just to erase the wave when I want to see the bathymetry without anything on it. So now we're going to apply the texture we made earlier. So the map of the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz. We select texture in the options at the bottom left, and we will do set building texture from file, so we call it the construction texture building texture because it is a texture that will not be permanent. When we go to recharge the wave, it will disappear. Its texture, we only use it to create the bathymetry. So here I'm going to get my texture, so here, and I'm taking my texture which I'm going to resize here, the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz, and we see this space here. The photo at the bottom left activate with the texture that I have just loaded. So a little note on the texture, it won't necessarily happen in the right direction depending on the photo we took. So we'll see that we can return it. So I'm going to go to settings to be able to select my background as I want. So I have the beach in front of me, beach and ocean there, and I activate show textures in bathymetry area and bathymetry setting, show texture there. So I see my texture by transparency. So here we see that I have my dike at the bottom. That's not what I want. So then in the texture, I turn to 90. There you go. So I have my dike which is towards the ocean, that suits me, and now I've inverted the texture, so I'm going to do a flip to put it back, rather the flip the other way. Here. Am I fine? Yes, I have ST beard. at the top right. Okay, the texture is correctly applied. Now, we can clearly see that it is deformed because we remember that this texture is 2000 meters wide by 1500 meters deep. So I will now go to my settings to modify the settings of my grid, to apply the correct width and length to it. So here. So the width here is the columns I'm going to put 2. And I see at the bottom, the size there increased to 202 meters. I want 2000 meters, so we're going to put 20. Voila, 2000 meters wide and deep it was 1500 meters. So I'm going to put about 10 here, it's going to be 7.5. So at the bottom here I see the grid size updating, 1507 meters by 2020, we will stay like that. So we can see that the texture is applied, and that the bathymetry grid is resized according to my map. Now, I'm going to apply the different depths read on the map. So we're going to do something more or less precise. We just want to have an influence of the swell in the bay. We are not going to be super precise either, but the more precise we are, the more realistic we will be. So then to start, I'm going to set the whole background to 0. So I'm selecting the whole grid here, and I'm going to make the selection go 0. Here all my selection is at 0. Now I'm going to apply the bathymetry to the different zones that interest me. So what we can start doing is doing everything above water. And we're going to say without worrying too much that we're going to be more than 5 meters away. So we're going to start by building the dikes. I'm going to uncheck the entire grid selection, and I'm going to make a little square here. 2 meters, so 3 by 3, 3 lines by 3. And I'm going to say I'm going to go position myself on the dike here. And I'm going to select vertical and bring all that up. So here, I'm at 0 meters, I'm going up to 5 meters. And I'm going to have that copied because I'm not going to reselect everything like that and come and do 5 meters everywhere there by copy paste. In fact, if I selected a square of 3 rows by 3 columns and copied it, in fact, I will also copy the surrounding ones. So it's not going to be okay. I'm just going to copy a little less tall to be sure I'm all at 5 meters. Come on, I'm going to make my dike. So I copied and pasted it, and I'm mounting my wall at 5 meters. Here I will copy this. It will be fine now. Here, and I'm doing my dike at 5 meters. I'm going to go that far. Let's admit. So I have a 5 meter dike here. It goes a little further here. I'm going to thicken it up a bit here. Like that, it will suit me very well. I will propagate 5 meters here too. Across here. And I also come to do the dike at the end here. And there we have the rock. And to do a benchmark, we're gonna get this out of the water. So little trick for the grid. I double click to select and refocus on where I want to be. But if I select a grid point, and I control and I select another point, it draws me a square, a rectangle. That makes the diagonal here. I have all this area there selected. This area there, I will mount it to its ST beard. I'm going to climb it to 20 meters minimum. Go 25 so we'll see. This is my rock of street barb. Very simplified, but it will go very well. So Control and C. With all that. At 0.2 m. Then I reset to 0 rather. And I go to 0.2 m because if I had a zone which was already set lower, that poses a problem for me. So I think you have understood the principle. We select zones, we increase, we reduce the altitude. And we are going to apply all the bathymetry on the indications of the map, and we are going to accelerate a little bit all that, to arrive at our finished bathymetry a little faster. So this bathymetry, I work a bit on it, I'm going to save it bathymetry which I'm going to call bathymetry St. Jean. Registered. I could refine it at will, but this is really an example, so we can still do something here. We're going to smooth this whole area. On the other hand, I am careful not to leave my dikes, because I would like them to stay like that anyway. I'm going to smooth it a bit like that, no more. Moderate smoothing with the same thing in the channel. So I select a point. And I select a diagonal. It selects a whole contour for me. Here is a little smaller. I don't want to damage my dikes. Here is a little one too. Smooth the area here without damaging the dikes. Here we have modeled our Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz. We will now go back there. A swell amplitude. So we know it's a fallback spot. We will say that there is a strong swell, so there we are going to put strong swells. We are going to put a coefficient at 1500 to lengthen the period. Therefore shorten the length. We are going to put a 500, and we are going to model this swell entry into the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz. So our swell has been modeled. We're going to start it. So here, we're going to put it at normal speed. We're going to explain the slider and the time flow here. So I'm going to stop the time flow here. In the upper zone, we set the speed of the flow of the wave modeling time. So the arrows at the top indicate the speed. Here it is normal speed. Here it's reverse speed. Here it's neutral. Here, slow speed, medium speed. We can also adjust the speed with this slider here. So we scroll forwards, backwards, to change the speed of time flow. In the neutral zone, we conclude here with a stop. And in fact we have the blue button, here the blue slider, which allows us to scroll at will between the front and rear swell entries. Overall, the swell is really very attenuated by this sea-wall system, which, once it arrives in the bay, is completely attenuated. From the scale at the bottom, you can see the heights of the swell entering the bay. So we see that the system is really broken. What we're going to do is take an interest, more than just the height. It's the shape of this swell inside the bay that is quite special. So, because of the two entries, so here in the color scales, we will limit the color scale to 1 meter to highlight everything that is below 1 meter. Through these two entry points, we will generate a swell, which has a very particular shape, which has two sources, and which therefore produces somewhat strange wavefronts here and there. It's really a simulated swell entry in an area where there would be no sea at all, no swell at all before. While of course the swell rises steadily, it's not a front that comes in like that, so we're going to speed up to bring the swell into the whole basin and stabilize it. And there we can see the swell system forming in the basin. And we can notice here, it's the breakwater at the top. At the St. Barbe breakwater, we can see that there is a swell that turns around the dam here a bit like a break point. Here, surf foil and paddle lovers really like this area here. Well, here, we're going to surf at the breakwater. It will break here and we will be able to surf it normally. And a little further down, we have this wave from St. Barbe, which has a rather special look for those who have already surfed it. We have a sort of broken swell here. Well, we see the strangeness. We see the origin of the strangeness because of this double radiation of two sources of entry into the bay. So we see here that the swell front has a kind of break, a kind of bowl that we know well when you go surfing in this place. Well, it was just a little tutorial to show how, beyond the surfing space, you can analyze a little what happens in a pool submerged by the swell. Here, it was therefore the Bay of St. Jean-de-Luz.